Как человек приходит к еврейству, как я пришел к еврейству. Собственно,
The way of a man to Judaism. How did I get to Judaism? It would seem quite natural for a Jew to get to Judaism and find himself. But on the other hand, in this country, in Russia, life itself is built in such a way that a Jew's arrival to Judaism is a miracle. Because here, everything is done so that a Jew will cease to be a Jew. Bigun, Yosef Zisolevich, in exile, Jew, with limited human rights, permitted to move freely only within the limits of the Susminian region.
ואולי לא היו הדברים מעולם, ואולי מעולם לא השכמתי עם שחר לגן לעובדו בזיעת אפיים. מעולם בימים ארוכים ויוקדים, ארוכים ויוקדים של קציר, במרומי הגלה המוסר
10 years of refusal.
לא נתתי קולי בשיר.
10 years of refusal, 13 years of imprisonment.
13 years of refusal, 5 years in exile.
12 years of refusal. 9 years of refusal.
12 years of refusal.
9 years of refusal.
אוי כנרת שלי.
Yosef Begun, engineer, scientist, 12 years of refusal, detained for the 3rd time in Vladimir prison.
אני בארץ יותר מ8 שנים. זה הרבה או מעט?
I've been here in Israel for more than 8 years. Is that a lot or a little? It depends on how you look at it. 8 years for a new immigrant in a new country is almost nothing. Very little. But if I think of how much we've done, new skills, new members, a full life, Army Reserve Service, we've built a home here. The land is full of roots. Only a few years ago it was full of rocks. Now we've built a settlement. A new settlement. A group of members, most of them from Russia, who left the Soviet Union. And I think, what are 8 years over there, in the Soviet Union, to a Misarav Aliyah, to an immigration refugee? It's a very strange phenomenon. It's like a man who has a past and has a future. He dreams of getting to Israel. He hopes. But he has no present. There are dangers, persecution, trials. An utterly strange life. Extraordinary. And then Yosef Begun found himself. He began teaching Hebrew. Then they started persecuting him. And what persecution? A scientist, and they wouldn't let him practice his profession. They forced him into jobs like porter, night watchman, operator. And then they judged him. They judged him a leech, a parasite, and sent him to Siberia for 2 years. 2 years in exile. Then, naturally, he tries to go back home, to the city of his birth, his family, where his friends live. They won't let him. He has to live with criminals 101 kilometers away from Moscow. They catch him later in Moscow, even before he gets the negative reply to his request to return to Moscow. Again, they send him to Siberia. Into exile again. 3 years. We always kept contact with him. We wrote, talked on the phone. Now, even those connections are gone. Now he is in one of the biggest prisons in Russia, one of the cruelest, Vladimir prison. What happened? What did he do, Yosef? What crime did he commit? He tried to teach Hebrew. And that's not illegal in Russia. You can teach any nation's language. Yosef tried to do it openly, so that every Jew could know his language and the history of his people, if he wishes. Yosef, from his first exile in Siberia, wrote to Yuri Redcheo, one of the leading authors of the Chukchi nation, a group of only a few tens of thousands of people living in northeast Siberia. And he wrote,
"Your language is new. You received your alphabet after the Bolshevist Revolution of 1917. And you can write to your people in your language, and they can read your books in your language, Chukchian. My language, Hebrew, is one of the world's earliest. I, when I tried to teach my friends Hebrew, found that they are not allowed to learn. I am not allowed to teach. They are not allowed to read in Hebrew. So I asked, teaching Hebrew, teaching the alphabet, is that a crime?"
Children, I have a question. What language do we speak? Right. Why do we speak Hebrew?
Because we were born here, and this country is Israel, and we speak Hebrew here. In America, they speak English, so here we speak Hebrew.
Good. Gali, you wanted to add something?
We are here in Israel, so we are used to speaking Hebrew, because we are Jews.
It's our mother tongue.
Very true. Alexander, what language do you speak at home?
Russian.
Sergei, what language do you speak here?
Only Russian.
Don't you speak Hebrew yet?
No.
So why do we have to learn Hebrew?
I want to learn Hebrew. This is Israel, and here you should speak only Hebrew.
Мы являемся свидетелями действительного чуда. Чуда возрождения еврейства в Советском Союзе.
We are witnessing a true miracle, the miracle of the revival of the Jews in the Soviet Union. Even if it is slow, sometimes tragic, the process is expanding, including more and more people. In Moscow, in Leningrad, in Vilna, in Kiev, Jews learning their language in secret, in fear, in terror. And in spite of everything, they are learning their language.
זה היה במאי 77. הגענו לבית משפט משהו בשעה 8 בבוקר, ומשפט היה צריך להתקיים בשעה 11.
It was in May 77. We arrived at court about 8 a.m. The trial was to be at 11. We thought this trick could get us into the courtroom, but it was for nothing. At 11 o'clock, they said the hall was full, and there was no more room for any of us.
ושאין אף מקום לאף אחד מאיתנו. אנחנו ידידים שלו, עמדנו על...
We, his friends, stood outside the courthouse. We couldn't see what was going on in there, and we were worried.
אבל לא הצלחנו לראות מה מתרחש שם. אנחנו הבנו אז שזה משפט בעצם לא על ביגון, זה משפט על עברית, על תרבות.
We understood then that this wasn't a trial about Bigun, actually. It was a trial about Hebrew, about the Jewish culture. And when they arrested him for the third time on October the 6th, these were the last words we heard from Bigun.
This is a trial of the Jewish culture. I will not participate in this trial.
עכשיו נשאלת שאלה, למה הם רודפים אחריו כל כך בעקביות? סיבה היא פשוטה. זה היה מאבק...
Now the question is asked, why do they hound him so consistently? The reason is simple. It was a very important struggle between him and the giant USSR. The authorities didn't want people to teach and learn Hebrew. They did not want any kind of Jewish culture in the Soviet Union.
בתוך ברית המועצות. יש מורים לעברית, יש הרבה מורים לעברית, לא כל כך הרבה, משהו 50 מורים לעברית.
There are a lot of Hebrew teachers, about 50 in Moscow. And they don't hound each of them like they persecute Bigun. What's the reason? Again, the reason is simple. To learn or to teach Hebrew in these conditions in the Soviet Union, when under the pressure of the police and the KGB, takes a lot of courage, and not many can do it. They can't afford to.
ומה שרצה לעשות ביגון, לעשות לגליזציה של סטטוס שלו, של מראה פרטי לעברית.
What Bigun wished to do was to legalize his status as a private teacher of Hebrew. To be like a private teacher of English, for instance. Hundreds of thousands study English with private teachers. He wanted the same thing for Hebrew. Then the people could listen to the voice of Israel and strengthen their bonds with Israel. But the authorities decided otherwise.
To describe my emotions. When almost in the first days of my arrival here, your letter also arrived. It was a real sign that after 2,000 kilometers of land, of snow and cold, there are still our kind of people, and that the world is not just in the hands of the enemies of Judaism and the proponents of evil. It's good to be a Jew. Hard, but good. The bridge of our letters is my bridge of life. Thanks to all of you, and you are many all over the world, who are opposed to any form of persecution because of conscience or beliefs. Dear Misha, your letter reminded me much of history, new and old, and our commitment to that history turns the happenings around us into something alive and real. I wish you strength and success in our land, a land which awaits many of us, and I am hoping that we shall meet. Regards to all my friends, to Yehuda and Avigdor, to Chaim and everyone. Your Yosef.
כבר עברו 4 שנים מאז שעמדתי בקור הזה שהגיע אז למינוס 60 מעלות בעיירה נידחת במקום שהוא...
It's been 4 years since I was in that cold of minus 60 degrees in a forsaken town, in a place further north and further east than the place known as Siberia. And that picture haunts me. There stood a Jew, looking at me with sad eyes, body bent, with a beard, dressed in different and strange clothes that protected him against the cold. It was my Hebrew teacher, Yosef Begun. I had known him for many years, and went with him through all of his sufferings and experiences that were his reward for trying to teach Hebrew, and for trying to make Hebrew studies legitimate in the Soviet Union.
וגם לעשות את הלימודים של עברית לגיטימיים בתנאים של ברית המועצות. יוסף הוגלה בפעם השנייה לסיביריה,
Yosef was exiled for the second time to Siberia, and I knew that I owed a lot to that man. I knew that I had learned Hebrew from him, and he endangered himself. I did not endanger myself in coming to the lesson, in receiving all the love for that language, for the people of Israel, for the state of Israel, for Zion. It was he who risked himself. Although later on I too began teaching Hebrew, I knew that it was he who had shown me the way through the dedication of his spirit, and I decided that I would simply go to him and express to him all that I felt inside. He had to work each day as an electrician, to do outside jobs in the cold that reached minus 40 to 50 degrees in the winter, and sometimes even 60 degrees. I asked him, Yosef, you were never religious. What attracted you so? And he said,
when I was in prison, I prayed for the first time in my life. I recalled all the prayers I had remembered from some song of Shlomo Carlebach, or from some book I had once read in Hebrew, and I started to pray. This brought me closer to Zion. This is what gave me the strength to endure and not to break under prison conditions.
I found this to be a true wonder. I asked him, but you've been to prison a second time, and now in exile. That's the Torah, and this is the reward? I asked him. And he said to me,
we, the Jews in the Soviet Union, cannot do without being Jews and learning Hebrew, without wishing to go to Israel, for that is our land.
One day, Yosef came to my room at the hotel, a room where the window was iced up from the outside. He embraced me and said, Avigdor, you received an emigration permit to Israel. I was happy. My dream had come true. A dream of many years had become a reality. Suddenly, I saw that Yosef, who was definitely happy for me, I saw that his eyes were filled with tears. Yosef said to me, I so wish that I could go with you.
אני כל כך הייתי רוצה לנסוע איתך. אני לא אשכח את הרגעים האלו, כי מאז אני חי במציאות שהיא בעצם כפולה.
I'll never forget those moments. For from then on, I have lived in a reality which is actually dual. There is no greater joy for me than to know that I am here in Israel. This is actually the realization of all that Yosef had taught me. On the other hand, it is hard for me to feel that I am free and happy in Israel when Yosef is now, today, in Vladimir prison. Yosef had walked me to the station, and when the bus arrived, he looked at me with eyes sad yet full of hope, and said, don't forget us.
יוסף יהודי פעיל עלייה שלמרות הכל, למרות הלחץ, למרות מאסר, למרות גלות, ממשיך לפעול כיהודי בפועל.
Yosef, a Jew, Aliyah activist. He endured the pressure, and in spite of imprisonment, in spite of exile, he continues to work as a Jew, to teach, to educate. And many of his friends ask the same question. Why doesn't Yosef calm down, just sit quietly? Why doesn't he look after himself? Yosef once told me that he had gone to a cinema and saw films about the extermination of Jews in Auschwitz. And he said to me,
I was born again after that film. I felt that my place was there too, to burn. And that I am alive only tells me that I shall forever be indebted to my people.
הוא פשוט מרגיש שהוא חייב, הוא מרגיש שהוא צריך ללכת ממקום למקום.
He simply felt that he must go from place to place, to run from house to house, and spread the Jewish culture, and to save the Jews that had been educated as Gentiles in all things. Also, you might say, that somebody had to stand up and be a voice in the wilderness. To say, even today, there are those who would destroy, kill, and wipe out the people of Israel.
שגם היום רוצים להשמיד, להרוג ולאבד את עם ישראל.
ילדים, למדנו על השפה העברית.
Children, today we learned about the Hebrew language. The Hebrew language is our mother tongue. Could there be such a situation that they would come and take me and try me in court for teaching you Hebrew? There is a man in Russia, children, who is a prisoner of Zion. And they tried him for wanting to teach Hebrew openly. I will pass Yosef Begun's picture among you. You will look at the picture and pass it on to the next pupil.
Дорогие друзья, братья, хаверим вахим шали. И рад этой возможности обратиться к вам. Я не знаю, кто вы. Я не знаю, знаете ли вы обо мне.
Dear brothers and friends, I am happy to be able to address you. I do not know you and do not know if you have heard of me, but I do know that you are my people, people of Israel. The fate of each and every one of us concerns all of us, especially if he is persecuted only because of his desire to be Jewish and to live in his own land.
ארוכים ויוקדים ויוקדים שכבשים